Hey everybody. So I'd like to talk about a little something if you are working on someone's computer and you're going to be reinstalling Windows. And this has to do with backing up files. So ever since Windows Vista, the more or less the user profile format has been local disk C /user/username. Now of course on Windows XP it was documents and settings and then the username. But what's important here is with the majority of computers you'll work on, the files are generally going to be on the C drive and they'll be in the C/user/person's username folder. The vast majority of customers' computers, they'll be more or less all their files will be inside the user's folder. And the user profile. For example, my name there is Nick. Now, some of my stuff is actually on a different drive, so not all the folders are here. But of course, you'll have your documents, your music, pictures, videos, downloads, desktop, and there's also an app data folder, which has, for example, temp files as well as, for example, bookmarks for a web browser. Now, of course, with Chrome, for example, it's common for people to sync into their browser. That way, their stuff is saved on the Google Cloud. But anyways, the big important thing here is when I do backups, of course I copy everything that's in the user profile. And if I'm backing up the drive out of the system, like for example if I hook up to the Plexi, which is my service computer, of course I have to double click the folder and it will ask me for permission to access the files. It'll say you don't have permission or something like that, and you have to click yes, and it has to go ahead and take ownership more or less of the files and where you can access them. You do that first and then you copy everything over. But there's something else I do want to cover, and number one is some computers nowadays will have a C drive which has of course Windows and programs, but the files will be over on a different drive. For example, in this system here we have a 1 terabyte SSD, and then I have 8 terabytes of storage on a RAID 10 setup. So my data drive is known as drive F on this system, and in here is where I have my documents and pictures and all that good stuff. So when you're looking at someone's computer and you're looking to back up the files, be careful. Make sure that you, of course, check and make sure there's not, of course, a second drive with files and folders on them. Now, for example, so these shortcuts over here, they're all set up to actually navigate to the F drive, which is where my files are at. And I'll put a card in the upper right corner discussing how to do that when you set up a system with a SSD and hard drive combo. Another thing you want to keep in mind is, although it's kind of rare, in some cases the customer might be using the public folder in addition to their profile. So we'll go back to the data drive here. We'll go to users, and right now of course we have just my user profile in public. Now of course if you share the computer with multiple users who have their own sign-ins, you'll see those populate in here. But this public folder, most of the time it's going to be relatively empty. Like, you're not going to see stuff in it. It's just going to be empty folders like public desktop, public documents, public downloads. Like for example, that one's empty. Public music, all that good stuff. Generally those will be empty, but in some cases you may find that the customer is actually using the public folder. For example, if they have multiple computers in their house, they may use a public folder to put some items to where they can share with other computers in the household, for example. Now, I have stuff set up a little differently, but I do have the public folder in use. I have my computer servicing utilities all in here. This is kind of like, for example, when I work on computers, like my installers, my ISOs for operating systems, all that stuff is kind of in the public folder. So when you're going to service someone's computer, don't overlook that public folder. Always make sure you check it and make sure that there is in fact Double check and make sure it's empty before you assume it's empty, because you would not want to miss important stuff that could be in the public folder. Now, another thing is some customers, particularly those who are not very tech savvy, might place important stuff like documents or whatever outside of the user profile. I've come across computers that had stuff placed like on the C drive. Now, of course, I actually kind of do this for a different reason. I have my VM images, or virtual disk images, directly on C, because I'm taking advantage of the SSD's better performance. So I have all my different virtual machines placed on the SSD, and I have them directly in C. But sometimes you'll find document folders and just random files in the C drive. So you definitely want to check the C drive and just check around, make sure that you don't miss anything. And sometimes it might help to ask the customer, hey, are there any locations on the computer that you're saving stuff that's not in your documents, for example. Sometimes they may be able to answer that question, sometimes they may not know what you're talking about. It depends. And the thing is, when I service someone's computer, I have to balance between, you know, privacy and, of course, hunting down files. I don't like peeking in people's files. I want to respect the customer's privacy, and when someone brings a computer for service, I try to make it clear with them, say, hey, I may have to access your files as part of the backup and restore process. However, of course, I respect your privacy. I'll keep that as much to a minimum as I can. So there you go. So essentially, when you work on a computer and let's say you're new to working on computers, you're starting up your own on the side hustle for repairing PCs, and you're reinstalling Windows for somebody or something of that nature, and you're needing to back up and restore files. First and foremost, make sure that, and of course, most computers are going to have just a C drive, but some will have a C drive and maybe a D or an F or something for documents and stuff like that. Like, for example, as I mentioned with this system here, got the SSD, and we've got a RAID 10 set up for my file storage. Number two, check the public folder. Make sure that there's no stuff in the public folder. And another thing is double check outside of the user profile to ensure that you don't have any stray files or folders, like, for example, on on your C root, for example. So hopefully those are some helpful tips. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, thanks for taking the time to watch this video from Computer Channel. If this is your first time, please subscribe to the channel and be sure to tick the bell so we get notified of new video posts. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment, and share this video as well as the channel with your friends and get the word out. Also, I have a second channel, that's CubeCompMTDX. Over there you'll find videos about thunderstorms and weather, cycling, and videos about me personally. Feel free to subscribe over there as well if you like. Again, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for your support.